nowadays you got to have that because people nowadays.
Before we get straight into the podcast, I just want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors, Declan Kirby GAA Star. Declan Kirby GAA Star Championship Journey. It's a series of GAA team children's books written by primary school teacher and GAA coach Michael Egan. You can check it out in the link in the description down below, of course, as well. Follow the trials and tribulations of Declan Kirby and his team at Smithgreen Gaelic Football Club, recently formed but promising GAA team. The book is now available in Easons and all good bookshops, so check it out in the description down below, and let's get straight into it. What's the story, lads? Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. I hope you're all keeping wonderfully well. My name is Aaron and this is the GAA Fan TV All-Star Football Team of the Year. That's right, I'll be picking my best 15 from the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship. That has now officially concluded following the victory for Tyrone over the weekend. So, I mean, certainly a lot of options. It was a very difficult team to make. Definitely a lot of very good players missing out. And obviously bear in mind this is my opinion, but do feel free to disagree and let me know down in the comments below what changes you would make to the team. And yeah, I mean, look, listen, certainly at the start of the year when we were all kind of predicting what the All-Stars would be, or players we sort of thought would get in the All-Star Football Team of the Year, we certainly probably wouldn't have expected the players that have got in, you know, very much dominated by Tyrone and Mayo players, a couple of Kerry players in there as well. And yeah, no Dublin players, and quite incredible. I don't think anyone would have predicted that at the start of the year, considering Dublin have normally dominated the All-Stars in the past couple of years, given the fact that they did in fact win 6 in a row up until this year. But I suppose without further ado, anyways, let's get straight into it. If you are new around here, if you could hit the like button and subscribe, I would kindly appreciate it. I do appreciate all the recent subscribers, recent commenters as well. I do go back and read every comment, so I do very much appreciate all the nice comments and whatnot as well. And obviously the growth of the channel has been unbelievable this year. I couldn't have expected it to have grown the way it has, so I really, really do appreciate that. But I suppose we will crack on and we'll start off with the goalkeeper in Niall Morgan. I don't think there can be any debate about this whatsoever, in my opinion. I think he gets in here unanimously. He's got better with every game. He's made big saves when he's had to as well. He's obviously been scoring points. He's very well known for drifting outside his box, which I will be honest, I'm not a big fan of, but I think he's got the balance right, in my opinion anyway, especially in the Championship. We all remember in the league when he was caught out with that Gavin White goal, but I do think in the Championship he's been very, very good. Like, he's got that right balance. He hasn't been caught out too many times, which I think has been impressive. And he's been, you know, his distribution's been perfect, brilliant against Mayo. I thought he was fantastic that day. Very good against Kerry as well. Obviously made a couple of big saves in the Mayo game, if we don't remember as well, especially at the start of the game. He made a couple of big saves there as well. And same against Kerry. So I think he's been fantastic. 3 points against Mayo, 2 points against Kerry as well, which for a goalkeeper, absolutely brilliant. You'll remember that point from the halfway line as well against Kerry. That was absolutely exceptional. So he gets in. Nobody really comes close for me. I know Robbie Henley would probably be number 2 in most people's eyes, and I probably agree with that as well. I do think Robbie Henley, though, has made a couple of errors this year, in particular in the game in the final. He got caught once or twice against Galway as well, which he got away with. I do think he scored that point against Dublin, and you can't knock that, so he definitely gets in at 2. And yeah, I think Niall Morgan gets in at 1, no doubt about it. Rory Beggan actually probably deserves a special mention as well. I thought he was very impressive against Tyrone and very impressive against Armagh as well. Made a couple of big saves in that game, so he gets in with a shout as well. But Niall Morgan, no doubt about it for me. We move into the full-back line, and in at number 2 we have Lee Keegan, and obviously Lee Keegan normally playing at number 4, but there's another player at 4 that gets in here, you know, without a doubt, in my opinion. So we've got Lee Keegan in here. I think he's been very impressive for Mayo. I mean, he's been the engine behind this team, the driving force, the man who gets forward. He'll always kick a big point when you need it as well. He obviously kicked a brilliant point late on against Tyrone when they were really under the caution. They needed to step up, and he was probably one of the few players who looked like he could do so. Very impressive player. I mean, just so good at getting forward, can kick a score, can get a goal if he needs to as well. And defensively, I think he's been very impressive as well. One thing I would say was I'd love to see Lee Keegan play further up the pitch. I'd love to see him in a half-forward line, see what he could do around at number 10. I think he'd be very impressive. And it would be interesting to see, you know, with Oisin Mullen maybe. I do think Oisin Mullen's far better at cornerback or at wingback. So, you know, could we see a potential where Lee Keegan gets pushed further up the pitch? Maybe there needs to be a change in management for that to happen. I don't know if James Horn would do that, but we'd have to wait and see. But no doubt about it, for me, Lee Keegan gets in at number 2. Very, very impressive. In terms of other players who could have got in here, Michael Mckernan, probably the unsung hero for Tyrone, could have potentially got in here. He's been very impressive, brilliant defensively, brilliant against Kerry and against Mayo. Podrick O'Hara, okay, fair enough. You know, he's played at fullback and sometimes at number 4. He potentially could have got in here. Michael Fitzsimons, I actually think he's been very impressive for Dublin. The very few players for Dublin that I thought was very good and very consistent this year. Good against Kildare. Struggled at different stages against Meath, but I thought overall he was decent. And against Mayo, I actually thought he had a very good game, albeit Mayo were the ones who came through that day. So Michael Fitzsimons gets a mention, but you can't look past Lee Keegan in my opinion. And in at number 3 is a very obvious choice for me as well, and that is Ronan Mcnamee. I mean, what a player, what a talent he's been this year for Tyrone. Brilliant defensively. Obviously marked O'Shea in the final, kept him very quiet. You know, obviously he let O'Shea win the ball a couple of times and then play it from side to side, but all in all he didn't allow O'Shea to really have a sniff in the game at all. Obviously got that block, if you remember, as well, the goal opportunity. So I think he's been very impressive. Was brilliant against Kerry as well. I believe he marked David Clifford in that game, and I thought he was very impressive, albeit David Clifford scored 8 points. But I still think Ronan Mcnamee done a very good job in at number 3 in my opinion. So he gets in unanimously. A few other options, I mean, some people would say Oisin Mullen. For me, definitely not. Didn't play in the semi-final. In the final he struggled. He got caught on that high ball. Thought he was quite poor defensively, and I've said it on numerous occasions, I don't think you see the best out of him at fullback or even at centre half back. I think if you're playing him at wing back or cornerback, you know, he has more space to drive forward and do what he does best. I think he's much better at getting forward than he is defensively. So I think Ronan Mcnamee gets in there, no doubt about it. I don't think there's anyone else really that comes close. Jason Foley for Kerry, definitely not. Davy Byrne for Dublin, definitely not. So yeah, Ronan Mcnamee in at number 3. Also, my voice might sound like it's gone, and that is because it definitely is. So hopefully we will manage to find a way to power on and get fully through this video before my voice completely breaks. But number 4, Podrick Hamsi. As I said before, a contender for Footballer of the Year without a doubt for me. Obviously the captain of the Tyrone side. You know, he'll go down as a legend now, no doubt about it. And he was absolutely brilliant this year. I mean, one of the points of the championship in the final, I mean, to do that quite early on, when Tyrone probably started a little bit nervously, like you forget Noah Morgan obviously hit one of his kickouts backwards, you know, the ball drifted backwards and obviously had to be retaken. You know, and it was, Tyrone did start a little bit sloppy in that final for the opening sort of 5 to 10 minutes, and Podrick Hamsi scores that point, and I think it just took the, you know, it really settled the nerves for Tyrone, and he was brilliant. Like, obviously driving forward at different stages, played that pass for Conor Moyler, who then went and set up Conor Mcshane, was able to pick men out in front of him. He got big blocks in at different stages against Kerry as well. So he's been absolutely brilliant, no doubt about it. Gets in there for me. Other mentions, maybe Tom O'Sullivan of Kerry was actually looking pretty impressive up until the Tyrone game. Got caught out a couple of times, probably getting too far forward. Perhaps could have got in with a shout had Kerry have progressed past Tyrone, and maybe he would have been impressive against Mayo as well. But yeah, Podrick Hamsi gets in at number 4. We move into the half forward line, and number 5 might be a surprise, not necessarily getting in the team, but in the position he's playing, and that is Niall Sludden. Now, Niall Sludden can play in and around the half forward line, as we've very well seen. We've seen that obviously in the final and in the semi-final, but he can also play at wing back as well. He played there against Donegal, and he played there against Cavan at the very start of the championship as well. So Niall Sludden, very good player, very versatile player, can play in the forwards, can play in the fence as well. So that's why he gets in at number 5. And actually his work defensively has probably been the main reason why I get him in this team, actually, to be honest. Like the clearance on the line against Mayo in the final, like that was unbelievable stuff. So good at getting forward as well. Like 2 points in the final, a point against Monaghan, 3 against Donegal. His best game for me was against Donegal. I thought he was exceptional that day, and 2 points against Cavan as well. So really good player at getting forward, gets those blocks in, you know, the turnovers as well, he's essential for. He's the extra man in the fence as well, whether he's playing in the forwards or not, he often drifts back. So Niall Sludden, no doubt about it for me, gets in there. Other players that could have been in contention, I mean, Paul Murphy was fairly impressive, it must be said, for Kerry. He had a couple of good points and a couple of good moments. Paddy Durcan as well was very closely. He was probably number 2 actually in the pecking order. Scored a brilliant point against against Tyrone. You know, when Mayo were under the cosh a bit, he scored a point. Got a point against the Dubs as well. Very well taken point. So Paddy Durcan, when he's getting forward, is absolutely brilliant. So he was closely followed up, but Noel Sludden getting in at number 5. And we were speaking of turnovers, and we were speaking of link play, and we can't look past Peter Hart, because what a player he has been at exactly that. You know, if you think back to the semi-final against Kerry, they scored 2-8 from turnovers that day, and Peter Hart was absolutely exceptional in doing so. He was the man leading those turnovers, getting those blocks in, you know, breaking on the attack, and he was the man definitely part of that. Scored a point in the final as well, and that was a very impressive point from him, and he scored a point against Kerry, which came at a brilliant time in that game. So Peter Hart gets in at number 6, no doubt about it. Number 7, Kieron Mcgeary, one of the players of the year, no doubt about it. Certainly gets in for Footballer of the Year, certainly gets in contention for Footballer of the Year, no doubt about it. Can play at 5, can play at 6, can play at 7, can play all across the half-back line, and that is what makes him a very special player indeed. And obviously getting forward, getting a couple of points here or there, getting those blocks in as well has been what's most impressive. The support play has been brilliant, always seems to find himself in the right place at the right time as well. So I don't think you can really look past Mcgeary. A point against Mayo, a point against Monaghan, 3 points against Donegal as well, which was very impressive in probably what was one of his best games as well, it must be said. Gavin White maybe could have got in contention here. He was probably a player that gets mentioned, but I don't think you can look past Kieron Mcgeary. We move into the midfield, and we have both Matthew Ruane and Con Kilpatrick. Matthew Ruane of Mayo and Con Kilpatrick of Tyrone. Matthew Ruane, I suppose, first of all, I mean, he was quite poor in the final, like, let's not sugarcoat that. Got sent off and probably didn't have his best game, but I think obviously the All-Stars are based on the entirety of the championship season, and I think even though Matthew Ruane had a poor enough game in the final, I do still think he gets in here, in my opinion. Like, against the Dubs, he was absolutely brilliant, broke forward a couple of times, got that point early on in the first half, which was absolutely brilliant. It really settled Mayo down at that stage, because that was Mayo were actually quite poor in the first half. I think he actually scored the first point from play for Mayo in that game. That was a brilliant point. Against Galway, he was exceptional as well. Like 1-2, got that goal in the second half. He was the driving force for Mayo in the second half. He really, really was. And it was just such a brilliantly taken goal, like a brilliant forward run, and put it through the legs of the Galway goalkeeper. That was absolutely brilliant. 2 points against Leitrim as well, and certainly had his influence in that game and against Sligo. So Matthew Ruane getting in at number 8. And number 9, as I said before, Con Kilpatrick. I mean, that catch in the final, I mean, he'd almost get in for that alone, in my opinion. I mean, such an exceptional catch. Obviously, and then before setting up Conor McKenna, who then played the overhand pass to Darren Mccurry. Con Kilpatrick, absolutely brilliant in midfield. You know, does the small work, the work you probably don't see. He does the tidy work. He's brilliant at intercepting the ball, catching the high balls as well from kickouts. So I think Con Kilpatrick getting in there, in my opinion. Very quiet going about his business, and maybe some people will be surprised by this. I think Brian Kennedy probably deserves a special mention as well, and I do think he'll probably be a contender for Young Footballer of the Year, no doubt about it. If he's eligible, I'm pretty sure he is. But yeah, I think Brian Kennedy's been very, very impressive. Reminds me a lot of Brian Fenton, actually, the way he just passed the ball from side to side and around the place. So he was definitely in contention. Jack Barry in contention as well for Kerry, and Conor Loftus probably deserves a special mention for Mayo. But Con Kilpatrick, Matthew Ruane, I don't think you can look past the two of them. We move into the half forward line. Number 10 is Conor Moyler, and again, Conor Moyler, in a similar fashion to Noel Sludden, can play in and around the fence. I believe he marked Paddy Clifford in the semi-final and done a fantastic job that day. There were some rumours that he was going to play in and around there in the final. He obviously didn't. Played at number 10, and he was absolutely brilliant as well. And again, in a similar fashion to Noel Sludden, getting back, his defending has been brilliant. You know, getting those challenges in, the turnovers. He's been absolutely central for that. And obviously the ball for Carl Mcshane, like to pick that pass out, was absolutely brilliant. So I think he gets in at number 10. 11 is Sean O'Shea, and Sean O'Shea, for me, Kerry's best player this year. Well, I suppose Paddy Clifford probably a little bit better, but Sean O'Shea, exceptional stuff. I mean, 8 points against Tyrone in that semi-final. In a game where a lot of the Kerry forwards were struggling, I thought Sean O'Shea was actually very impressive, and there was a couple of times he broke that line that Tyrone had, that defensive line. He got in behind a couple of times, and I think Sean O'Shea still had a very, very good game. 1-6 against Cork, obviously got that goal, brilliant stuff there. 9 points as well against Tipperary in the semi-final, and 1-7 against Clare. So that was very impressive from his point of view. The playmaker in that team, the support play, absolutely brilliant. So Sean O'Shea getting in there. And I suppose if Kerry had have gone on to the final, and maybe had they have been the team that would have won it, I do potentially think that Sean O'Shea would have won Footballer of the Year, or he would have been thereabouts. Definitely very impressive stuff from Sean O'Shea. 12 is Paddy Clifford, and I know probably a lot of people may be a little bit surprised by this, given the fact that Kerry were obviously beaten in the semi-finals, but Paddy Clifford was probably Footballer of the Year up until those semi-finals, and I don't think you can forget that. And I still think he had a reasonably decent game against Tyrone. It's not, he's not the player that's going to be scoring 6-7 points or anything like that. Like, he's not a free-flowing scorer. He's not like his brother David. And obviously Conor Moyler marked him that day and kept him relatively quiet. Still scored a point, still doing what he needed to do, still was able to pick out a couple of players. I suppose it was very tough for him given the way Tyrone had set up compared with against Cork, Clare and Tipperary, where they were really able to create a lot of space in that game and be a lot more free-flowing. So still think Paddy Clifford had a significant impact, and still think he deserves to get in the question, no doubt about it. I suppose Kieron Kilkenny, he was a player that definitely could have got a mention. He was very close, and I thought he was very impressive from a Dublin point of view. But I don't think you can look past Paddy Clifford, in my opinion. We move into the full forward line, and I don't think there can be any arguments at all with 13. Certainly one of the contenders for Footballer of the Year, and that is Darren Mccurry. Just looking through what he scored: 1-4 against Mayo, 4 points against Kerry, 5 against Monaghan, 7 against Donegal, and 10 against Cavan. Obviously the free taker a lot of the time for Tyrone as well, especially on the left hand side, and he's been extremely clinical with those points. And some of the things that most impressed me about Darren Mccurry really is he's just so brilliant at cutting back inside, hitting him with his left over the bar. Reminds me a lot of Stephen O'Neill, I have to say. Like, maybe not as quick as Stephen O'Neill, probably doesn't have that same pace, but in terms of cutting back inside and hitting it with his left, I think he's been absolutely brilliant. And very, very impressive player, no doubt about it. Got that goal as well against Mayo, like we were saying, in the right place at the right time. And I think that's something about Darren Mccurry, is that he can go through quiet spells in games, but then he can step up and be absolutely brilliant. And I think there's a reason why they call him the Dazzler, and he certainly dazzled on numerous occasions for Tyrone this year, and a significant player for them in winning an All-Ireland. I think he was absolutely fantastic. I suppose some players that deserve a mention, David Clifford, a little bit unlucky to miss out, I suppose. It was good against Tyrone, to be fair to him, quiet enough against Cork, but again, he didn't really need to be at his best that day. Got a goal against Clare, a goal against Tipperary. I think he scored 1-6 against Tipperary, so he was impressive. But again, I just don't think you can justify him over Darren Mccurry or anyone else in this team, in my opinion. So he misses out. Tommy Conroy was good for Mayo, had a couple of good moments, whatnot, good against the Dubs, especially as that game progressed. Cormac Costello, to be fair, probably close enough for Dublin. I thought he's probably been one of Dublin's best players this year, so he's not a million miles away. But again, I think Darren Mccurry is ahead of him, and I think Clifford and Conroy, to be fair, are probably ahead of him as well. And number 14 is Carl Mcshane, and I don't think there's ever been a player before to win an All-Star coming off the bench, or a player who's never started a game, but he scored 2-8 from the bench, and I don't think that can be overlooked. Like, he has had an impact in every game that he's come off the bench. He's had an impact in every game, like a goal, 1-1 against Kerry, a goal against Mayo in the final. He scored a point against Monaghan, a point against Donegal, a couple of points against Cavan as well. He actually scored more than a point against Donegal. I think he scored 2 that day. So, he's been very impressive. He's been brilliant. And, just being in the right place at the right time for those goals, being there in the right position for the Kerry goal. Obviously, when Dereck Hannivan runs through, forces the save of Shane Ryan, it drops out. There he is to put the ball in the back of the net. And again, even against Donegal, he kicked a couple of brilliant points as well. Against Monaghan, he came off the bench to score a point. And, they weren't easy games as well. They were tough games to come back. And when you consider the injury that he had as well, I know that doesn't kind of play a part in terms of picking the All-Stars. It probably shouldn't play a part, but it still makes it more impressive. And the fact he's doing this all coming off the bench, I just don't think there can be anyone close who gets in at number 14. As we said before, You know, Paddy Clifford's already in this team, so he doesn't get in. We're not picking Aidan O'Shea. I don't think he gets in. Con O'Callaghan of Dublin, I don't really think you can put him in consideration either, in my opinion. He had a one brilliant half against Meath. Other than that, he hasn't been better than Carl Mcshane. So I think Carl Mcshane gets in there. I don't think there can really be an argument, in my opinion. I think he's been absolutely brilliant, and you know, what a player and what a servant for Tyrone down the years. So yeah, he gets in at 14. And last but not least, in at 15 is Ryan O'Donoghue. And anyone who watches this channel down the years or in the past couple of years or so will know that I'm a big fan of this guy. He is a top-class footballer for Mayo, and I think you know, I think if Mayo had have gone on to win the All-Ireland, if they had have found a way to turn it back, he would have been my pick for Footballer of the Year. And even at that, I still think he gets in the top 5 or top 6 in my opinion. I think he's been brilliant. Like, just looking through his score tally for the entirety of the championship: 5 points against Sligo, 1-6 against Leitrim, 1-3 against Galway, 5 points against the Dubs, and 8 points against Tyrone. He has took a lot of the frees as well. He's taken over as free kick duty, you could say, and obviously that wouldn't be, you know, he wouldn't be, you know, number one normally. Obviously Cillian O'Connor would be the man to do that, so he's taken over for the frees, especially close up to goal, and he's slotted the majority of them over the bar, to be fair to him. Missed the penalty, but I don't think you can judge that on him, in my opinion. Like, you know, it's one of them things where it happens, it goes off the post, the right, you know, the top right corner of the post, like another inch or so to the left, and we would have been talking about a brilliant penalty. So I'm not really going to judge him on that, in my opinion. And like in the first half against Tyrone, he was really impressive. Like, he was winning a lot of frees, he was breaking beyond that line. You know, he was getting on possession a lot of the time as well, and he was just making things happen. And I felt like anything good that happened for Mayo in the game, I thought came through him. Like, I just thought he was really, really impressive. Against the Dubs as well in the second half, like, he really stepped up in extra time. I remember he scored a couple of points as well. He was very impressive in that as well. His work rate as well. Like, he's just, you know, pressing high up the pitch. Just a top class player, and obviously got a goal against Galway as well, 1-3 against Galway. He was brilliant in that game as well, especially in the second half when Mayo turned it around. So I think he gets in there, no doubt about it, for me at number 15. But anyway, lads, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up here. Do let me know down in the comments below what players or what changes you would make to this team. I suppose there are only 15 players available, or only 15 options available, so very hard to fit every player in. And of course, you know, given the fact that Tyrone have won the All-Ireland, and given the fact that how impressive they've been in doing so, obviously that has certainly influenced my thinking along the way. But yeah, do let me know down in the comments below what changes you would make to the team. If you have enjoyed this content, do leave a like and subscribe. Share this out to as many people as possible. Getting very close to 2,000 subscribers, so if you could subscribe, I would very much appreciate it. And anyways, my name is Aaron, and I'll see you all later.